Citizen Talks is a podcast series featuring discussions with humanitarians, activists, artists, and changemakers, exploring the global humanitarian issues that shape our society, the world at large.
Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of Citizen Talks. I am your host Minkailu, and we are very pleased to be joined today by Azima Dhanjee, the co-founder of ConnectHear. Azima, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thank you for having me. It's truly a pleasure.
The pleasure is all ours. So first things first, I would like to start by giving a little overview of who you are and what you do for our listeners who may not be familiar with you.
Absolutely. I am the co-founder of ConnectHear, but more important than that, I am a very proud child of deaf adult, a CODA, and living in a deaf family all my life. I've always been very passionate about using sign language, telling people about the beautiful language that exists. And also, I've been raised seeing the kind of biases people have about persons with disabilities, about the deaf community, about my deaf parents, which led me to start ConnectHear with my friend in 2017, so about 7.5 years ago while I was in university. And the entire focus was, how can we tell the world out there about my parents and how they live their lives very normally, and how us as society can be more accessible and not create limitation for them. Because honestly, like, the social definition of being a person with disability is actually the limitations created by the society for you. Even if I'm over here in Turkey today and I meet someone who speaks the Turkish language, which I don't understand, that's a limitation for me very naturally. Right. And the language limitation is something that a deaf person feels every day in their lives. And that's something that led us to start ConnectHear, where we teach sign language to create technology that can support the deaf community to get connected to sign language interpreters on their smartphones. So we have made things, we have produced, and we have innovated technology that can support people like my parents have a better quality of life. And it's truly been a pleasure to see the journey where nobody believed in that idea, especially we were 19-year-old kids who started doing it, something new in Pakistan that no one had done before, to now creating a community that passionately talks about disability inclusion on a daily basis.
Wonderful. So I want to drill a bit more into that experience that you had growing up as the child of deaf adults. What kind of things did you deal with in your society, and your parents specifically? What did they deal with in the society? And, how does Pakistan, more generally speaking, handle persons with disabilities? Like, what's the sort of general reaction there? And are there any structures that exist or were existing to accommodate people?
Absolutely. Talking about my personal life, I've literally been raised hearing people tell me that, oh, you're so lucky you have deaf parents. I'm sure they don't, yell at you or scold you, because I've always been a very mischievous child from schooling. So my friends are like, oh, you're so lucky. They can't get angry at you. They can't yell at you. And for me to tell them that deaf people do have voice, and my parents do get mad at me a lot, just like any other family, any other, friends that I had. So I was raised in a very normal lifestyle setting where my parents were as strict as other parents about studies, but then also as motivating about, pursuing different opportunities. So for me, being raised in that lifestyle and having so many aunts and uncles who are also deaf, in my family, we primarily speak in sign language. So life never felt different for me until I started going to school. And, as simple as my parent-teacher meetings teaching me that maybe my family is different than others. Because while my friends' parents come and talk to the teacher directly, I am the interpreter in between my teacher and my parent to communicate with each other. And like I said, I was always the mischievous child in the class. I used to get in trouble a lot. And I remember this one instance where my teacher, my professor, was telling my mom that she talks a lot and, she's always creating trouble in class. And my mom was just like, it's okay, she's a child, she's going to do that. And my mom had a smile on her face. So my teacher had the perspective that she's saying that she's very mischievous, Azima is, troublesome. And I'm telling my mom that she's the best girl in the class, and I'm basically misinterpreting. And my teacher going on like, you need to bring someone who I could directly talk to. And I think that's one thing that really hit me in my life, that why can't you directly talk to my mom? Why can't you tell her whatever you want to tell her? Why do I have to bring someone else in my family for that? And that made me realize that how many instances in my life I faced that. If my parent wants to go for a doctor's appointment, my brother and I have to decide between, do we go to school that day, or we accompany our parent for a doctor's appointment? And then also realizing that my parents are probably fortunate to have hearing children like my brother and I, but there are so many deaf families who are completely filled with deaf individuals. So who interprets for them? And what can I do more to support them? So since I was 11 years old, my parents started sending me to interpret for people. So I would go for their doctor's appointment. I was like a young kid talking for everyone and interpreting. And I think that really made me realize that the society probably do not want to accept the deaf community and don't want to innovate for them in an era where technology is booming. I had my own anger and biases being a coda, that why doesn't society want to do something for my parents? Why is it the fact that when my parents and I go for shopping, at a mall or at a store, and we all are communicating in sign language, why are people all around us going on like, how do they live their lives? How are they doing? And saying things that made me feel like that people are always biased about persons with disabilities not being able to live their lives or being, competent or successful, given the fact that my parents have always worked and financed every single thing in my brother and my life. Until I started ConnectHear and I realized that a lot of these biases, that society had was probably because of lack of awareness.
Right.
So it was never like the society looked at persons with disability like they are lesser than others, but more like, how are they living their lives? Why did God bless them with less? Why did God create these challenges for them? How do we talk to them? People coming to me and telling me that we have always wanted to talk to your parents, but we don't want to offend them. What if we sign something that is incorrect? So that shift in, my thought process happened from being an angry, biased child, thinking about society don't want to do anything for my parents, to realizing that society don't know enough about my parents, and how could I create something that could educate them and support the community at large. Because as per WHO, 16% of our current global population has disability, and 80% of them live in global south, which includes Pakistan as well. So what can we do in my country ourselves, even being 19 years old, to change that sympathy to empathy? And we have honestly seen that in the last 7 years, Minkailu, where people have honestly gone from the perspective that, oh, how could we give them donation and we can give them charity money, to now asking us, what kind of skills can you give persons with disabilities so that we hire them in our regular position? And it's been a true delight to see that change happening in Pakistan through ConnectHear.
So has that been something that you've seen reflected at the institutional level as well in Pakistan? In for example, a lot of Western countries like America, they have, I guess, the sort of DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion movement that's happening. There's a lot of attempts to incorporate persons with disabilities into the institutional structures, businesses, government, etc. Is there a similar thing happening in Pakistan, or is that still kind of not really a sort of topic of discussion?
It has certainly become the topic of discussion. It wasn't the topic of discussion 7 years ago when I was studying in a business school and people would tell me there's so much more to do. You can join MNC or a big company. Why do you want to focus on DEI and persons with disability? But now it has truly shifted to a point that most of the impact that we're able to make are through our corporate partners who have understood that it's important to hire and to give better quality of life to persons with disability. A lot of that has also come from our governmental institutes where they have built policy. So I belong to Karachi. In Sindh, our Sindh government has a Persons with Disability Act and rules with it that has really pushed companies to focus on hiring persons with disability, educating them. So there are a lot of stakeholders that are coming together to focus on it. It has become a topic of discussion now. Of course, there's always room to do more, but I'm just glad to see that from going from a perspective that 7 years ago we had to call everyone up and educate them that you really, really need to do it, to now people calling us and asking us how can they make it happen in their organization. So that shift is very delightful. It's brilliant. However, we are just pushing to do more and more. For example, we would love to see more impact happening in the rural areas of Pakistan. So the urban cities are very well aware, but how do we reach to the rural area? So for the next 2 years, ConnectHear is going to work on a humanitarian project in the rural area of Sindh that's more focused towards educating them about disaster awareness, how can we use technology in that, and just really reaching the masses and building the right partnerships with the government to reach the majority of persons with disability who probably belong to the lower income areas, the rural areas, the towns, and not majorly the cities. So no work can be done alone. It has to be done in partnerships, and we're just very grateful of all the partnerships we have gotten and people just institutionalizing the idea as well.
Yeah. Okay, so I want to make sure that our audience has a full, like a sense of the full scope of all of the things that ConnectHear does. So can you give us actually not just an overview of the actual tech itself and specifically what kinds of work you're doing, how you're providing more accessibility, but also the ways that you're kind of expanding out and different kinds of initiatives that you guys are currently working on and planning in the future?
Absolutely. So ConnectHear's mission, vision is to make all public and private spaces accessible for persons with disabilities. So it is as easy for them to walk into a space and get services as it is for you and I, persons without disability. And we do that through, number one, doing a lot of awareness-based trainings. So we have an entire training department that conducts disability sensitization training. We do a lot of fun sign language classes, sign language training. Then we also have an entire department that's focused towards job placement, so ensuring that persons with disabilities get the right job opportunities in corporates or in governmental institutes in Pakistan. Then we focus a lot on technology because since the beginning, being Gen Z ourselves, we have always seen the power of technology making impact in the lives of persons with disabilities. So what we do is that we have something called ConnectHear application, which is a one-step virtual sign language interpretation solution. So on your mobile phone, you have our app, you click on a button and you get connected to a virtual sign language interpreter. And it is not only with the deaf community, but it is also available with our banking partners, corporate partners, so that if a deaf person walks into a bank and they require financial services and they're not based in Karachi or the major city, but maybe in a smaller town where the bank exists. When they walk into that bank, they can request for interpretation and the bank will provide them with a virtual sign language interpreter, same quality of service that they can get in Karachi, in a bigger city. So that technology has truly, truly proven to make an impact from a perspective that we have had a deaf girl, for example, she was captivated in her house in a smaller town, and she got in touch with our interpreter through the app, and then the interpreter actually mobilized one of the police officers to go to her house and get her out of the house and moved into a women rehabilitation center. So seeing the kind of impact the app has been able to make, not only from a perspective of giving them economic support, but then also improving their personal quality of life, where they were, captivated in their house, didn't have opportunity to tell people what's happening to them, at a lot of time getting harassed as well, to actually getting an opportunity to improve their quality of life just through this technology. finally giving them a way to communicate to the society out there. And now we're also focused on using AI into the entire mix. So my co-founder, Arham, he has been very passionate about using AI to support the deaf community. So we're working on a sign language recognition tool, which will be used to teach people sign language till interpreting for them in real time, very automatically, from a perspective that it's not only focused on Pakistani sign language, but in other sign languages as well, especially in the global south where the countries do not have such technologies or support available at the moment. So we're very passionate about coming up with new innovative ways to support the community. But you must hear this in my talks that it is not only focused on doing tech, but then also creating a cultural shift in our society, in our community as well. We make a lot of videos in sign language. So, we're doing a podcast right now. A lot of people are now very excited about video production. So we have an entire production department that's led by a deaf producer, and he makes video content in sign language. So we have ensured that in every way we can make communication and information accessible for the deaf community, we do that.
Wonderful. So can you kind of illuminate me a bit, because as you say, a lot of people aren't informed. This is not something that actually I have a ton of information about. It's not my experience really with deaf persons. What is like the structure of sign language? Is there a universal sign language? Because you're just sort of kind of relating concepts.
Yeah.
More so than specific words, I would say. Obviously they are attached to words. So is there like a universally intelligible sign language that exists, or it's different for every single language? Like, I know this might be very basic for you.
No, this is a very important question. We have more than 300 sign languages in the world.
Okay.
Yes, because sign language is based on culture.
Right.
So before globalization, everyone lived in their own countries, and just like spoken languages were evolved, sign languages were also evolved based on culture.
Okay.
Of course, we do have, impact of the countries we were with before. So India, Pakistan, because we were together in subcontinent, our sign languages are very similar. But Pakistani sign language is different from American sign language. A very basic example of that is that in Pakistani sign language, we sign men like this. So the mustache.
Huh.
Yeah, because this is something common within the men in our country. But in American sign language, boy or men in sign like this because of the hat. So this is boy. So it was based on culture, but now that the world has globalized so much that we have started learning other spoken languages, I speak Urdu, but as well as English. Just like that, people have started, learning each other's sign language. However, in Pakistan, predominantly we speak in Pakistani sign language, which is particular to our culture.
Okay, thank you for explaining that to me.
Absolutely.
So I'm curious about your experience as a young tech entrepreneur in Pakistan. What has that experience been like? Do you feel like you have a lot of support from the government? Is there sort of all the resources and is there the capacity, I guess, that's required to build a new technology company, right? Sometimes you're building something very innovative. It requires things that people didn't even know they needed. Do you find that you have everything that you need in Pakistan? Have you faced any challenges? A lot of tech entrepreneurs move to this place or that place, but are you finding you can be successful where you are?
Absolutely. So I think we had to start this in Pakistan because my passion came from the community based in Pakistan. However, when we started, there were three things in play. Just like you said, we were young entrepreneurs. Secondly, we were also social entrepreneurs. So we're building a technology that's going to create impact in the society, which was a very new concept in the tech world in Pakistan at that time. People did not understand what a social enterprise actually means. And thirdly, I am also a female female founder. So my gender also played a lot of role in the entire mix. However, we did receive a lot of support for the idea because it was the very first time that it was happening in Pakistan. We were also fortunate to get a lot of, student-based competition money. So we participated in a lot of competition. We were also celebrated a lot as young entrepreneurs because not a lot of entrepreneurs at that time were 19 years old. So I think it did benefit us a lot to start early. We had a lot of appetite to take risk. For example, I took an entire semester off from my university and my business school supported me with that as well. However, yes, there were challenges on their own. So just like I said, the three things, people thought that maybe this is more of a passion project. People did not understand the actual scope of it. So it was also hard to find ways to fund our idea, fund our project. There was a lot of high risk. Every time someone is going to evaluate us, the high risk was our age because we were, first time founders. We don't come from business background. We don't have business-based families. So that was always a question as well. We were at times asked to, get someone who's older than us to vouch for us as well. However, I think our work really, really made an impact. So it wasn't the words or writing things down, but the work that we were doing that people could see. So just like I talked about the ConnectHear application, of course, we didn't have the money to build the technology from the get-go. So what we did was we used a third-party platform. We had WhatsApp as our way of providing interpretation services at first. So for 1 year, we had a WhatsApp number where deaf people would call us whenever they needed interpretation, just to prove the concept. And we got 60 calls per day on our WhatsApp number. And the number was so huge that when we put it all together and we went to one of the grant providers at that time, our work actually told them that we have the capacity of building this application and making sustainable impact through it. So I think there are challenges with your age when you want to prove that you're building a new innovative ideas. We also had to bring a lot of proof from the foreign world. So you spoke about America. America has the American Disability Act, and they have had the technology that we have built in Pakistan for the first time for a lot of years. So we had to bring proof of concept from there as well to tell people how we're going to do it. And then I think when you bring together your hard work, your passion, you do find the right people in your journey who, give you the benefit of doubt, trust your effort. And a lot of the people, we meet them now, they're like, we trusted you at that time. Of course, there were risks, but we think we made the right bet. And I think that's the best thing to hear because ConnectHear's journey has now motivated so many young entrepreneurs in Pakistan. We have 15-year-old entrepreneurs, 16-year-old entrepreneurs coming up with new sustainable ways of making impact, not from a not-for-profit perspective, but from a social enterprise perspective. I think one of us had to do it, and luckily ConnectHear and us were the ones who created that environment in the country, asking us about if we think we need to take our company to other countries. Yes, from a growth perspective, but never from a perspective that it's not working out in Pakistan, so we need to go somewhere else. We have seen the Pakistani stakeholders being very, very supportive of the entire community and the idea of making Pakistan more inclusive. And I think anywhere else we take this idea to the other countries we plan on expanding to, they will also take it as an inspiration, the things that we have done in Pakistan, a tougher market itself.
Yeah. So as you mentioned, right, inspirational for young entrepreneurs, and you definitely want more people to build these kinds of innovative products, etc. So let's provide some motivation for the young entrepreneurs out there all over the world. Can you share with us some of your, I would say, greatest successes as ConnectHear? Like what kinds of, how have you been received both internally, internationally? What kind of moments would you point to where you would say, wow, yeah, this is something that I'm so happy that I did this, and this is working. This is a success,
Definitely. It's definitely the stories that keep us going every single day in this journey because it is tough to be an entrepreneur. I think our first major success point or something we felt so proud about was when we organized the first ever deaf inclusive concert in Pakistan. So if you love music, I absolutely love going to concerts and anything that I enjoy doing in my life. My question is, okay, so how can my parents also enjoy it? So we came up with an idea to make an entire concert accessible in sign language by having interpreters on stage, vibration, lights connected to the music. However, when we first announced about that concert on our Instagram page, we got so many comments from the society saying, this is such a ridiculous idea. How can you make people who can't hear or listen enjoy music? And there were just a lot of questions and curiosity around it. But the moment that concert happened, we had 300 deaf individuals, 700 hearing individuals. But kid you not, if you were in that crowd yourself, you could not tell who was deaf, who wasn't deaf, because everybody was just enjoying and dancing to the music together. And that was the moment we realized this is the kind of impact we want to make. We want to normalize the inclusion of persons with disability in the society. So I think that was our first major success to building our ConnectHear application and seeing the successes of it on a regular basis. From the first time a deaf person is able to walk into a job interview, prove their talent, because now they can communicate with the interviewer and actually get a job. We get so many messages that through the application today I had a successful interview and I was able to get a job, to a point that families, we have so many families that are completely hearing and they have one deaf family member per se. So I remember this mom who's a hearing parent, she contacted me and she said that I could never understand who my son wants to marry. But now through the ConnectHear application, I know what my son wants in life, and I could talk to him about his plans, and turns out he didn't want to marry. He wanted to, pursue education and job first and then go for it. So I think it's just the smallest to the biggest thing that happens through the ConnectHear application that is a huge success for us, to now seeing the ConnectHear sign language recognition AI actually being able to recognize signs through a simple camera in less than a second. So seeing the technology we had in our mind actually come live, and just think about the kind of impact it can make in the society. All of these might sound like, very small touch points, right? Like they're not huge boom, but like small touch points we were able to make. But that's something that makes us, very, very motivated, feel so good about the work that we do on a regular basis. And not only for us, but also for our team. Like the interpreters who sit at our call center every single day send us a message that, today, because of me being able to interpret for a deaf person, her mom was able to understand the deaf person for the very first time. Makes me realize about the connection I have with my mother, a deaf parent, and how much she has struggled in her life raising me and attending events where she did not know what was being said all around, but cheering for me when I'm participating in competition, to now knowing that every deaf parent would feel confident about walking into a parent-teacher meeting, connecting with an interpreter, and actually talking to the instructor themselves. And I think, Minkailu, another success is just seeing how Pakistan is so supportive of persons with disability now. The awareness has raised so much that it's not only the work that ConnectHear is doing that's making an impact, but you see, like, in pockets you'll see that someone's doing a water sanitation project, for example, in a rural area, and they're ensuring that all of their content is interpreted in sign language. So it wasn't necessarily something that, ConnectHear pushed them to do, but we have made such loud noises that when they were designing this project, they prioritized putting sign language as one of the language of communication. You see these ripple impact happening, and you just want to grow it more and more. Alhamdulillah.
Wonderful, wonderful. So before we conclude here, would you like to share any last words with our listeners, something to send them off with before you go?
Absolutely. Please, when you look at the journey of ConnectHear, when you hear my journey, my story, please do remember that I don't come from a business family. I come from a low-income family where the quality of life improved over the years, but was never like this from the beginning. My parents used to struggle to ensure that my brother and I had good quality of life. It's easy to look at the successes of ConnectHear and think that they must have had a lot of money, a lot of support, but it wasn't like that. People did not take us seriously. People always called me emotional for being a coda and wanting to work for persons with disability. It was actually the actions that proved to them that we are here to make real impact, sustainable impact. I would also like to request all of the listeners that you don't really have to have a deaf family member or a person with disability in your family to think about disability inclusion. It is each one of our responsibility to have our disability lens on, and whenever we look at things, think about how can those things or our project or our workspace can be more accessible for persons with disability. ConnectHear can't continue to make an impact alone. We need more ambassadors out there, and every listener could be one of our ambassadors. So through this platform, I would request everyone to start thinking about disability inclusion from an empowering way and get in touch with ConnectHear if you think there is something that we can do together, because we are on a mission to not only make a difference in the lives of persons with disability in Pakistan, but now worldwide, globally as well, because we all are a connected community, a connected family at the end of the day.
Wonderful. So how can people get in touch with you if they are interested in what you're working on? Where can they find you on socials, etc.?
Absolutely. I would love if you guys can put our socials, but ConnectHear, HEAR, ConnectHear. Just search us online on Facebook or on Instagram. Azima Dhanjee on Instagram. Just send me a message. We're very quick to respond to anyone who's supportive of disability inclusion.
Okay, wonderful. So thank you, Azima, so much for being with us here today. And for our listeners, thank you for joining us, and we will see you again on another episode of Citizen Talks.